Hi, I'm Rob Cram and we're taking a look at the long-awaited The Bureau XCOM Declassified from 2K Games' internal development studios, which has seen a bit of a transformation after initially being touted as a first-person shooter. Either way, the end result is still the same as players take on the role of troubled Agent Carter as he and the XCOM team look to thwart an alien threat that looks poised to overtake humanity and the Earth. In a nutshell, the game with its 1960s time frame plays just like a B-movie and is a perfect excuse to kick alien butt. Pleasantries aside, the game's shift to a third-person viewpoint feels fitting as the action offers players many skirmishes against alien forces where use of cover is paramount to success. This mechanic is lifted right from the turn-based games and might not have been as effective in first person. In a nutshell, the gameplay revolves around talking to people in the XCOM base of operations in the most painfully slow run animation ever, select a squad, which can be renamed to how you like for easy reference, and then take on various humanity-saving operations. Firstly, the squad element remains faithful to the series, in that if a teammate is killed in action, then they are gone forever, so that means either a reload or suffering the loss, which if you spent time building up the abilities of the agent, hurts quite a bit. That said, there's a healthy bank of other agents to choose from, and as the story progresses, players can send them out on independent missions to keep their levels from falling too far behind. Each agent is tied to a class, where each possess various skills which can be gained by levelling up. Naturally, the higher skilled agents make quite formidable sidekicks, where orders are given to suit the situations players are in. The operations themselves, which are mostly set on American soil until later on in the game, centre around moving from A to B across fairly linear maps, activating terminals and generally unlocking the secrets of the alien invasion and how Earth can fight back. Whilst the story is interesting, there's little time for proper depth of any of the characters, as it's business as usual for this type of game. Whilst there's an underlying narrative, its impact is largely overshadowed by the fact that the entire premise is simply of humans versus aliens, so there's no distractions here, which could be viewed as a good thing. The gameplay is pretty solid, with the use of real-time action from the player, using human and alien weapons, and two AI-controlled agents who on normal difficulty can hold their own for the most part, but on occasion require a bit of babysitting from time to time. Players can take cover and try and shoot down the enemy in action-based context, yet the real satisfaction comes from using tactics and the team to work together in taking out the enemy. Whilst the game is fairly competent as an action shooter, it feels and plays best when working the abilities and keeping one's head down safely. It's even well possible to simply sit back and dish out orders to the agents without firing a single bullet. The Bureau XCOM Declassified borrows heavily from Mass Effect 3 with its interface, where during fights the gameplay slows down and a selection wheel is displayed. Once an ability is selected, it's then placed on the map using a cursor or pinpointed at a specific target. It works well enough and is necessary to catch one's breath when the big guns come out to play. It's a shame there isn't an option to set the agents to use their own abilities independently from the player, but you can see why, as some actions are more complex than merely pointing a gun at an enemy, such as the use of placing mines, gun turrets and using airstrikes. Graphically, the game looks pleasant enough, despite some low-res textures, although there are some intermittent dips in the frame rate, especially when the game autosaves. In general, there's a vibrant and colourful look with some interesting all-American locales that pander to the B-movie presentation, and some stunning views on occasion which highlight the scale of the alien attack. The character models are reasonable, although not the most detailed, and the fact that players can choose to customise their players in pink clothing is a plus point. The audio does a fine job with its rousing and often jarring score, coupled with meaty sound effects and plenty of in-game chatter. During the less hectic moments, we're presented with a typical cast of characters who effectively do their jobs and provide little else to ponder. Whilst the acting is fairly solid, it's a rather unemotional performance overall, which perhaps again is fitting to the B-movie style. The Bureau XCOM Declassified offers quite a lengthy campaign that can probably be beaten in 8 or more hours of solid play, depending on skill and any side missions completed or ignored. Sadly, there's no New Game Plus to mess around with, where the only option other than replaying missions is to start over on a tougher setting. There's a distinct lack of extras outside of going for achievements, although useful ability enhancing backpacks can be scavenged from the field. There's nothing else to look for aside from lots of notes, photos and recordings. The Bureau XCOM Declassified attempts to marry two styles of play into one, and whilst one is better optimised than the other, it does work, although action gamers might find the game a little too tough if they ignore the battle changing abilities and their agents. The story isn't likely to win any awards, yet it's still an entertaining ride that presents some tense skirmishes and a predominant will to move forwards to see what happens next. In this regard, the game is well worth checking out, but is much more enjoyable for those who like to experiment with tactical manoeuvres. Shooter fans might feel a bit overwhelmed and left bleeding out, as the game is quite tough if the basics aren't fully understood. That said, if you're a fan of XCOM, then this is a solid entry for the franchise and well worth checking out. The Bureau XCOM Declassified scores 8 out of 10. I'm Rob Cram, thanks for watching.
Put a mine there!